Hi, good afternoon and welcome. Thanks for joining us. We'll get started in just a couple minutes here. Okay, I'll give it about 60 more seconds to see if anybody else trickles in. We find the 1:30 p.m. webinars often have people a few minutes late from lunch and whatever. So just bear with us for one more minute. We'll get started here. I just want to note too, if any questions come up during the presentation, please don't hesitate to use the chat or Q&A function to ask any questions. I will try to catch it. If not, Nolan can interrupt me and we'll try to address it as we go, or we'll get to it at the end if we do miss it. Just keep in mind the webinar is recorded, so don't ask anything sensitive about your firm. We will be recording this and posting it for later people to come in and use it for professionalism hours. But feel free to ask any generic questions. And if you do have any specific questions, feel free to reach out to us after the webinar. We'll post our contact info at the end. So thanks again for joining us. This is, as Noel and I were discussing, a topic that as IT people, we find very interesting and could talk about for hours. Hopefully we've presented this in a way that's interesting to non-technical people. The topic today is business continuity and resilience. This is how law firms can weather disruption. This is coming at it from a technical perspective about software, data, all that kind of stuff. So this will be a 30-minute webinar. Just a reminder, in case this wasn't the reason you came, this is LSO accredited for professionalism hours. And again, we will be recording it and posting it in its entirety on our website. If you do know anybody else that's interested in the topic and would like to get professionalism hours, you're certainly welcome to view it after the fact on our website. Just want to introduce myself. I'm Colin Pierce. I am the founder and CTO, Chief Information Security Officer for Inderly. We're also joined by our CEO, Nolan, today. We do IT for law firms. Hi, Nolan. So yeah, the topic for today is business resilience, and especially in the face of digital disruption. But this does apply to disruption to sort of like the real world as well, to some extent. So we've looked at lessons we've learned from the remote work transformation, obviously forced remote work through COVID, looking in and exploring things that we've seen happen at firms that have been victims of cyber attacks when we've come in after the fact to try to help with that. And supply chain it compromises as well. So there's plenty of ways for things to go wrong. And we're going to talk about how to kind of recover from that today. It's not really a focus on protection. It's more of a focus on when things go wrong. So we'll talk about remote operations, data backup, disaster recovery, which is by far the largest thing we're going to talk about, workflow continuity during a crisis, and risk assessment and insurance, which we've put to the end. It's a very daunting topic, but we will talk about that. It's a huge topic for most of our clients in the legal field. Their insurance premiums are just going up like crazy every year. So we'll talk a little bit about how to keep those under control, to look good to an insurance company by reducing your risk and hopefully lowering your premiums at the end of the day as well. So this is not a cybersecurity webinar in the sense that we're not going to talk about how to stop an attack. We do plenty of webinars on those. We'll do plenty more. Please, by all means, join us. This is more the paranoia, put on your tinfoil hat, and let's talk through what happens, not to stop things from going wrong, but what we do in the event that something does go wrong. We can have the best antivirus on earth. You can have the best cybersecurity team. You could lose access to a service through no fault of your own, through a glitch in a service provider. You could have an accounting error and your provider thinks that you didn't pay your bill for 3 months and they delete your data. You could have human error or malice. You could have a disgruntled IT person or a disgruntled assistant that goes through and deletes things. Or a vendor, your vendor itself could be compromised through no fault of your own. So there's lots of ways that things can go wrong, and there's only so many we can control for, and it's prudent to plan for things to stop working, whether it's your email, Clio, Saludo, whatever. What happens if these things stop working? How do we get them back working? Where do we go if we can't get them back working? All that kind of stuff. So we're just going to step back for a second and just talk about remote and hybrid operations. And this is a topic, obviously, that's been beat to death over the last 5 years. But even if you work from an office full time, get your IT out of that office. If you still have a server in that office and you are a law firm of under 50, I would even say 100 employees, get it out. Move it somewhere else. Move to SaaS solutions. If you want to change how you work, you can move to private cloud, something like what Inderly does, where we just take your server, put it somewhere else. Like the little graphic here says, there's no cloud. It's just someone else's computer. You could take your servers and put them in a data center and have them professionally managed by a company like ours. All that kind of stuff, but get it out of your office. Even a Class A office space, having the internet go down there, having extended power outages, all that kind of stuff. You just don't want to be subject to that. You want the flexibility of not having stuff in your office. Public cloud can be expensive. SaaS can be expensive. There's lots of cost-effective ways to move stuff out of your office if you want to think creatively about it and work with your IT team to do that. Other than getting your stuff out of your office, even if you work in office every day, just be loosely prepared to be forced to work remotely. Again, it could be a matter of a backhoe came and cut the fiber outside your office building and you're not going to have internet there for a week, or the power is out for a week, or whatever. It could be something innocuous. One of the things that we've seen with companies moving remote is if you're all used to working in the same place, you've got that quick conversation that's happening. Have an instant messaging system just kind of on the go. You've probably got Teams. Maybe just set up a group or two, or just make sure everybody's signed into it. That way, if you're all remote, you're not having to send emails or wait for emails to come through and you have a million CCs and a huge email chain. Instant messaging is great. We use it internally. We're remote, 98% of the time, and we use it for our internal chat here. And I recommend that every company have one, not necessarily to use on the day-to-day, but just in case you're all forced to work separately for the first time, have something in place so you can chat. And the last thing is, make sure you have clear communication with your own team and especially with your IT team about who's allowed to approve things. So if people need to be set up for remote work and you want to contact your IT company and to say, hey, look, we're stuck working from home. Can you set up so-and-so's computer for them? Ideally, your IT company is going to have some sort of security process in place for that. They're going to need a confirmation from a pre-confirmed manager and a way of confirming that, hey, this isn't just some bad guy that's pretending to work for you and wants to get a computer set up. So very simple thing, but very annoying to do after the fact if it's the day that you all have to work from home and you need 5 computers set up to work from home. So it's just a couple key things to get in place so that you're ready to work remote, even if you're not working remotely. Just be ready, because being able to work remotely is half the battle in terms of system resilience. The next thing you're going to want to do is we got to make a list of how does our firm work and what tools do we work with. So this is basically the bones of a risk assessment, but it doesn't have to be super daunting. And people seems like it's a big mountain to climb, but this is something you could do, on the back of a napkin to start over coffee. Write down everything you use. For most legal practices, that's going to be some sort of timekeeping and accounting system. Email is king still, obviously. And some sort of document storage, and then perhaps document automation and other things that help you with your workflow. But at the very least, you're going to have these 3 things. Write down what they are. Write down what you're using for them. So Clio, you want your vendor is Clio. What do we use it for? Timekeeping and billing. Maybe you're using it for file storage and document automation as well. Write that down. Not all products are used for everything, so it's important to say, what do we use this for? Write down your appetite for downtime with those systems. How long can you live without access to Clio? Well, if you're just doing timekeeping and billing, you know what? If we needed to, we could probably go a week without it. We'll write our time down, get our dockets in when it comes back online. Email, maybe not so much. We need email every day. We're exchanging with clients, opposing counsel, whatever. We can't live without that for more than a day. Write that down. This is your risk tolerance for these things. You'll find, obviously, that you're going to have key ones like email and document storage where there's not really any appetite for risk. But a lot of the time, things like an Outlook plugin that sorts emails, you know what, maybe we can live without that for 5 days if we need to, sort of thing. So be realistic about what you'll do. And then as well, unfortunately, this got cut off, but just put a quick thought into what your workaround is going to be if that system's unavailable. So, if our timekeeping system's down, well, we're going to write it down. maybe you want to go so far as to have a little Excel sheet that's just a quick chart so that everybody can kind of do it in a standard way so that, your accountant or whoever deals with that doesn't get overwhelmed when it comes back online. In the event of, say, email going down, as unplausible as that seems, it could happen. Do we have a list of phone numbers to call at critical clients? If we've got a court date tomorrow or we have a deadline on something, we need to pick up the phone and say, hey, this is going to happen, or it's going to happen late, or we're going to courier it to you, or whatever we're going to do without email. Are we prepared to do that? So just put in a quick workaround, and nothing is perfect, and sometimes there is no workaround. That's okay. We just have to acknowledge that there's no workaround so that when we're doing our technology planning, we know that this is really important. We need to do some stuff to make sure this stays online or something very similar stays online. So you don't have to, again, have an answer. Just put the information in so that you have your priorities aligned so you can then make good decisions moving forward. So once we have that list, we're going to look at backup, disaster, and recovery. So backups, especially in the age of software as a service, are kind of muddy. There's a big difference between point of time and file versioning and backup, and it's a bit of a gray area sometimes. So when we look at a backup, there's 4 key things that make, in my opinion, a perfect backup system. So you want a recent point in time. A backup that's a year old is not going to be a ton of good, or it's going to take you a really long time to get from that point in time back up to a running firm. So the more recent the backup, the better. The more frequently they happen, the better, obviously at a certain expense. You want backups that can be restored quickly and easily. And I should have put this on the slide, but also that have been tested that can be restored quickly and easily. I don't know how many times I've come into firms that said, yeah, we thought we had backups. Turns out they were corrupt, or turns out it takes a week to get them back up and running, or something like that. So if you haven't tested it, it doesn't exist. Restored quickly and easily usually means using a tool that's provided by that service provider. So you've got file versioning in SharePoint or in NetDocs or something like that. Very quickly, it can put whatever you need back in place in the right spot very quickly. Then you want to follow up with having your backups duplicated to a different company. And I'm going to expand on that a little bit after, but it's great. Clio does backups, or a lot of software vendors will say, yeah, of course we do backups, but where are those backups stored? Well, they're probably with that same company. So what if your account got deleted with that company for whatever reason? They're probably going to delete the backups with it. What if you get hacked and somebody gets into your email and emails them and says, we're canceling our contract? If it's with the same company, there's not necessarily a guarantee that they're going to be there if one of these sort of weird things that's going to test your resilience comes up. So for that reason, we want to make sure that we've got duplication to another company. That way, if something happens with that one, we've got it somewhere else. And ideally, the duplicate will be immutable. And this is I don't know if it's a new concept, I would say, anymore, but it's something that not even all IT teams are really focusing on. The concept of immutability with backup is that it goes in somewhere and it cannot be touched, come hell or high water, under any circumstances for a certain amount of time. So at Inderly, the way we approach this is we have an immutable copy of all the data we back up that is immutable for 30 days. So we put your backup into this third-party system. I can't delete it. Even if I don't pay my bill, it's going to be there for 30 days. There's absolutely nothing we can do to remove that data for 30 days. And that's really important because a lot of the time, catastrophic scenarios will involve somebody impersonating somebody in your firm that then tries to shut down your accounts with these or something along those lines. Having an immutable backup really makes sure that, again, you have like a 30-day window to get that data back where nobody can touch it. So in my opinion, this is a non-negotiable 2025 moving forward. If you don't have an immutable copy of your backups, as far as I'm concerned, they don't exist in a meaningful way, because if you were to fall victim to a supply chain attack, say your IT company gets compromised, and they're doing your backups and they also have access to your primary systems, well, now your primary systems are gone, your backups are gone, you've got nothing. Whereas if there's an immutable copy, you can always get something back for at least 30 days. So definitely look for that. Now, all that being said, especially in the age of software as a service, this just simply isn't going to be possible for a lot of things you use. Things like file storage and email there are a myriad of solutions to do this. So if you're using Office 365, like the vast majority of people, or G Suite, like the rest, um, there are many products that will allow you to back up your files and email, get them somewhere else, and get them into an immutable state. So that's very important. And then we can build on that because from our file server, we can get data from other systems, save it to our file server, and then have that data replicated to an immutable copy. So at least we have something to rebuild from, if the big one happens and we lose, everything or something like that. So again, yeah, like I said, servers as well, this applies to. So, if you are hosting servers in a private cloud or on AWS or Azure, there are great solutions for backup. And again, there's probably a dozen great solutions for that. So I won't name any specific one. That's going to kind of be up to your IT person what they use. So when you're looking at SaaS, how do we get that type of backup? Say I'm using NetDocs, and I really want to make sure that I've got an immutable copy that I own for that data. Well, they don't really have a first-party solution that supports that. They do versioning, and it's a lot of trust me, bro, we're backing it up internally, which is probably fine. But if something were to happen on their end, or your account were to be deleted, or something like that, what are we going to do? Well, they don't have a first-party solution. So this is where you want to have IT folks that are somewhat creative. They could, for example, set up a PC somewhere, have your NetDocs sync down once a day, twice a day, whatever, and then back up that PC to a third-party immutable solution. Are we going to be able to restore it overnight, like instantly? No, but we've got something and it's immutable, and now your IT, CISO, whatever, they can sleep at night. I think also included down here, just the SaaS shared responsibility model. A lot of people come to the cloud and they just assume that everything is being taken care of by their software provider. I've worked with a lot of software providers. They are absolutely not all equal when it comes to pragmatism around this stuff, when it comes to what they consider a backup versus what you might consider a backup to be. Most software providers will do some sort of versioning. So say you're using NetDocs, they're going to have your change log and your versioned files, but not all document storage solutions are going to have a way to click and say, hey, look, I need to go back to yesterday because we got ransomware today. It's not so much a backup as it is a versioning. So you have to really look at what they say backup is, because again, they'll often say it's a backup, but it's not effectively a backup in certain scenarios. And they're also not going to protect against you deleting your account or you getting hacked and they think that you've changed all your files, but really it was ransomware. They're also, again, not going to be perfect. We've seen upstream vendor issues where service providers, software providers, are hacked themselves, and they may be down for extended periods of time. There's only so much they can do. You can only certify your own product so much. So it is our responsibility as users of these products to make sure that we're also protecting ourselves against them and anything that could go wrong with them. So the last thing I want to talk about backup disaster recovery. It's just another way of looking at it. There's some very common gotchas, and this is where, fortunately, we haven't presided over any major data losses, but we've certainly been brought in post-loss or, post a firm being down for multiple weeks. And these are just a couple of the gotchas we've seen where people thought they were in good shape and they weren't. So the biggest one is backups to the same infrastructure. So when you're using a software as a service, there's a decent chance that they're not running it on their own servers. They're running it on Microsoft Azure, Amazon AWS, or Google Cloud. Those are the big three. And there's a million other cloud providers, but you want to make sure that if you're doing backups, you're not accidentally backing up to the same infrastructure. For example, we have a backup software vendor, Veeam. It's absolutely wonderful. We use it to back up emails, and we back it up to kind of like a different cloud. So we back up people's Microsoft, and we put it on a totally different company. They came out with a first-party backup. Great. We're talking. Yeah, we cover it all. It's great. It's half the price. Wonderful. Blah, blah, blah. We're about to sign up, and I say, well, where are you storing the backups? Oh, we store them on Microsoft Azure in the same data center as your email. Well, that's not going to do us a lot of good if Microsoft goes down. It's not necessarily if our account gets deleted because the backups are in a different account, but it doesn't, to me, make sense to back things up within the same building. It's unlikely, but that data center could go down. That fires happen, floods happen, things happen. Again, we're putting on our tinfoil hats and kind of assuming the worst here. So watch it. It can be a catch, and you may not always realize that this is happening. So ask the questions. Where does the software run and where is it being copied to? Let's make sure that those are two different places. Another huge one is single sign-on and common logins. So it's always this battle between we love the convenience of using our Office 365 login, for example, to access all our systems. And there's a ton of really good reasons why you should do that. But you want to make sure that you at least have some way of accessing systems that doesn't rely on that, because your identity provider could go down, say your Microsoft Azure goes down, or somebody in a critical position in your firm could have that identity hacked. And now all of a sudden the hacker has access to all your systems. So you really have to look at the blast radius, I guess you could say, of a compromise and say, well, just because my Microsoft got affected, what else is going to get affected by this? A lot of people will use, for example, their QuickBooks or Xero login to access other accounting tools. Well, if your Xero goes down, now all of a sudden we can't access all these other accounting tools. The worst I've ever seen was this poor company whose backups and restoration system tied into their day-to-day directory system. Well, the directory system got hacked and they couldn't restore the backups. You have to watch out for stuff like that. Just because you see that the backup's working, what's going to happen if one thing goes down? Is it going to take anything else out? So it's a bit of a, you play out the disaster scenarios, but those are the biggest gotchas I've seen with that. So again, a lot of this seems really technical, but you as the person in your firm knows best what tools you're using and how important they are. And hopefully these are good questions you can at least go back and ask your IT provider, or if you're doing it yourself, ask the vendors that you're talking to make sure that your backup strategy and recovery strategy makes sense. And again, it's going to be there when you need it, is the most important part. So yeah, workflow continuity during crises. Especially for folks that are used to working in an office together, being forced to work remotely without notice can be difficult. There's some really basic stuff, though, that you can do that's just going to make that first day a lot easier, is have basic contact info available. So do you have a client list that exists in multiple places and you have their phone numbers and their emails? That's going to be huge. If you are going to be offline for a few days, and at least you can call up your active matters and say, hey, this is what's going on, expect to hear back from us on Friday or whatever. So have that available in more than one spot. If your whole CRM's in Clio, just do an export every once in a while and drop it to an Excel sheet and save it somewhere so that, if Clio goes down or whatever, your account gets deleted or whatever happens, you have a way of getting that just basic information. This goes for your own team as well. Have a distribution list set up beforehand. If you've got a large team and you need to get information out to everybody and say, hey, this is what's going on. Do you want to find 30 different emails for everybody on your team to send them out, or do you just want to send it to all staff at firm.com? Have that stuff available beforehand. You don't want to be scrambling to do it on the day of. It's very easy to do and just kind of do it once a quarter. Really be thankful when it's there. Another big thing is, especially the larger firm, and we see this in firms with multiple different areas of focus and areas of practice, is what's important to you in terms of software and what's not important to you in terms of software might be very different from someone else in your firm. We've worked with firms that were doing, real estate on one end and criminal litigation on the other. And the software they used, they all had access to the same stuff. But we would have points of contact saying, yeah, it's no problem. Like, nobody uses this software. Take it down for an update, whatever. And then you start the update and there's like 3 people that can't work at all. And we didn't know that it was that important to those 3 people. So having an understanding of how sort of like each division in your firm works can be really useful in that scenario, because you will be triaging. You will be triaging, how to get in contact with people. How do we get some work done today? How do we move forward? And again, those priorities might be surprisingly different between different people in your firm. And again, one of the best ways to have workflow continuity is to already be mobile. Be remote. Even if you don't work remotely, treat your IT like you're fully remote. There's nothing better than to be able to just turn a hotspot on your mobile phone, connect your laptop in, and work from wherever it is that you need to work. If you can't do that, it's going to be difficult to do the rest of the stuff. So be prepared to be fully remote to start. So another big one, the big scary one, is risk assessment, redundancy, and insurance. So the good news is that we've basically done a risk assessment by doing this, and I don't know that this is showing up all that well, but by answering all the questions that I've posed in this webinar, you will have a great start for a risk assessment. And then there are different formal frameworks that have different like numbers and things that you assign, and it gets very granular. But if you have this information, and especially if you can bring everything you know as the firm to an IT provider or a security consultant or whatever, you are going to be so far ahead in your assessment. It's crazy. So we've done it. We kind of tricked you into doing it, and that's the purpose of doing all this. So when you go to fill out a cyber insurance questionnaire, depending on the insurance provider and the level of insurance that you're looking at, there's going to be about a third of the questions will be about these types of topics. So they do care greatly about how you're going to stop an issue in the first place, what antivirus, spam filter, assessments, blah, blah, blah. They very important, but equally important to most insurers is not if something happens, when something happens, how much are we going to be paying you out because you didn't have access to your files for a week? And what are you doing to make sure that doesn't happen? So if you have, loss of business or loss of income coverage, your premiums are going to vary wildly based on how well you're backed up and how well prepared you are for certain things in your firm to stop working. And we all know these premiums are going up for law firms like crazy all the time. So everything we can do to lower them, especially a really good backup and disaster planning exercise, is one of the biggest ROIs you'll get to try to lower that premium down. And again, I know this sounds like stuff your IT company should be doing, and it absolutely is, but nobody knows how your firm works better than you do. So again, if you can get this information together and get it out to an IT professional, they're going to be able to blow through it very quickly. And they're going to understand, what to protect and what to do. And 9 times out of 10, when you do this, you're going to be working with an IT person that's going to say, wow, your priorities are way different than what we thought your priorities were. So it's important to go through this and do that. And again, hopefully it will save you some money on cyber insurance and some headache if anything ever happens. So yeah, I appreciate you sitting through this. I know it's a very dense topic. We are actually thinking about offering a maybe 2-3 hour workshop for this, where we could actually go through these risk assessment matrix with people or sort of like together. If it's something you're interested in, definitely shoot us an email. We'll pose it out to Taloma and LinkedIn and stuff and see if there's traction. It's obviously there's far more nuance than we could cover in a half an hour with this. But I think it's a really important exercise that every firm should do probably like once a year, or at least make sure it's up to date once a year. So yeah, if you're interested in that, feel free to shoot us an email. We do love doing webinars, and we're always looking for topics that relate to the legal industry, technology that relates to the legal industry. Again, what we think is interesting and important may not be the same as what you think is interesting and important. Shoot us an email. If you've got an idea for a topic, we're happy to cover it. We can try to put something together. So please don't hesitate to reach out with ideas. I think we've pretty much done almost every topic that's been suggested to us. So you're not shouting into the void if you reach out. Please get in touch. Again, my name is Colin, and we are from Inderly. We do IT for law firms. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions, would like to do a formal risk assessment, anything like that. Our information is here. So thanks again for your time today, and we will be posting this to our website in the next few days if you'd like to revisit. And again, thanks for taking time out of your afternoon to join us.
Thanks, everyone.
And I'll just hang online here for a few minutes. If anyone does have any questions, feel free to pop them in. We'll stay online for the next couple minutes. Okay, well, I guess that's it. Again, thanks again, and hopefully we'll see you on the next webinar.
Thanks, everyone.